Senator Irungu Kangata of Muranga County. Good morning, Senator.
Fine, brother.
Welcome to the Situation Room, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So before we go into what's happening in the Senate, you don't have a deputy speaker now. You're working on getting a new deputy speaker. There is the entire sweeping of the errant boys in Jubilee. Before we get there, we have been talking about debt relief and the options that we have as a country in these COVID times and coming out of COVID on how to move the economy forward. Just as from your point, from where you see it as a leader, the government has been given this option to take up this debt relief from the EU countries. The National Treasury is looking at it and thinking, we've got to weigh our options. What do you think is the best way forward?
Well, of course, for me, it depends on county by county. Some counties can be able to take up that offer. Other counties cannot be able to take that offer, depending on their fiscal position.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Should it not be unified?
I don't think so. Remember, there is major differences in terms of population per county, in terms of resources which are being sent from the national government or even owned resource being generated in each county. All those differences make it impossible for us to have one unified approach.
Senator,
Yes.
yes, so the question we were asking is about the national government vis-a-vis the national debt. And we were asking, should national government take up the debt relief offer? And we were being told that if it takes up the debt relief offer, then our international credit rating might go down. And so we are saying, but if we don't take up debt relief, then it means we have to tax Kenyans more. So, and government needs to pay for COVID, doesn't have money for COVID to cushion those who have been affected. So what's the way forward?
For me, both sides of the coin have positives and disadvantages. Let me start with the positive of taking up that offer. Of course, we shall reduce the amount of money we are expending towards payment of international lenders, whether bilateral or multilateral. Remember that we pay every month a lot of money, and as per the Constitution, that money is usually the first charge out of our consolidated fund.
Yep.
And therefore, it makes sense for us to take up that offer. But on the other hand, if we take up that offer, then our credit rating will go down. When we go to seek money at the international market, we shall be charged more expensively as a country. And you may find some lenders refusing going forward to lend money to us because our credit rating has gone down as per the rating agencies like Standard & Poor, Moody, all those other ratings. Well, in my view, if I was the minister for Treasury, in charge of Treasury, I may be minded to take up that offer. Reason being, we shall only lose our credit rating from what we call commercial lenders. Meaning, if we are going, let's say, to take a euro bond, it's where we may find problems. But generally, I doubt as to whether we usually go to the bond market or to the international private equity market. And therefore, they are not our major lenders. So therefore, even if you were to lose in terms of the credit rating, it will not be significant. We don't need them per se. And therefore, weighing the benefits and demerits of taking the offer, I'll be minded to take up the offer. Because the people who lend to us mainly tend to be IMF, World Bank, other countries, and therefore, then they are not really impacted by our credit rating.
But the person that we owe the most, China, we are not having a negotiation with them.
Exactly. See, when you look at the money that we owe China, it is usually in two ways. One, the government itself of China, it's banks, which banks tend to be government owned, Exim Bank and whatever.
Yeah.
So therefore, Yes, I agree. We need to go and talk with China so that we also agree to a debt relief. But my view is China will not be impacted by a negative credit rating. Our relationship with them. So even if we were to be downgraded, we can still go and take money from China. So for me, I think the impact of a negative rating will be minimal vis-a-vis the benefit that we may derive if we decide to take up the offer for debt relief.
Yeah. One last question on the debt issue, Senator, is the issue of what priorities? Because obviously at this point, government needs, considerable resources to cushion businesses, vulnerable households, health, prop up the healthcare system. What needs to be cut back? What becomes non-essential? And especially looking at ongoing projects, where do we then cut? Because we can't, say we'll borrow or go for debt relief and then we continue doing business as usual. And yet we haven't had any discussion about what is non-essential. In your view, what needs to come out very clearly as non-essential? What are we going to say, okay, as Kenyans, this one now we put on hold so that we can focus on the emergency?
No more chapati.
Thank you. One, international travel and also domestic travel by government officials, seminars, they need to be frozen. And also wage increments. There have been several workers who have negotiated with government for increment of wages. They may need to be told no, to hold a little bit. And that, probably, we may need to reduce, but not cut completely, some of the infrastructure projects that had been set aside by the government. Also, possibly, maybe our security budget can be minimized, even if, of course, not completely taken away. Such. And also maybe the money we spend to our parastatals. It is time, in my own opinion, we reduce the size of the government. There are too many state entities, state parastatals, which some of them do superfluous work. It is time we do away with them, we save on the money we send to them.
This is a conversation that has happened over many years, especially about consolidation of state parastatals. Why is it that it doesn't seem to move? A task force was set up. It was chaired by Abdulkadir Mohammed in State House. It came up with a report. This thing has never moved.
Yes, I agree. I think it is time President needs now to implement that report. I know the school of thought that we have too many parastatals in this country. Some of them are not rendering any service that has a lot of impact on one entity. Example, the so-called regional development bodies. We have the Lake Basin Development Authority. We have the Coast one. All those bodies should be wound up, in my own opinion, because we have now counties which are the center of development at that level. So we don't need those regional development bodies.
And do you think counties need, I know there's a stimulus, I think, of some 5 billion that was shared between a few counties to respond to COVID. But in terms of dealing with, maybe health and other core issues, gaps in county service delivery, do you think that there's a need to increase the shareable revenue going to counties?
Yes, no. Let me start with the no. Of course, with the problem of COVID-19, the national government doesn't have a lot of money to send to the county. So therefore, the idea of increasing the shareable revenue that should be sent to the county is a little bit problematic within the set of circumstances prevailing now. But yes, to the extent that currently the problems that have arisen out of this pandemic, they relate to devolved function. Example, health is a devolved function. So we need to send, but on the other hand, we must also appreciate that the national government doesn't have a lot of resources now.
Senator, let's now come into politics. First of all, congratulations on your new position as the Senate Majority Whip. And then,
Thank you.
you took up this, and you were given immediately. You were given your first job is to trim a friend, basically.
Yeah.
Drive a dagger through a friend's back, and you stood there looking at him, and we saw you in on Friday, and you were really at pains to explain to Senator Kithure Kindiki, this is not personal, it's a position of the party. Now, Kithure Kindiki is no longer the deputy Senate leader, Senate Speaker.
Yes.
What is the thinking now going forward? How do you replace this person and elect a new one?
Well, the discussion are still ongoing as to who is going to see. So we wait for party direction as to who is going to be the lead, our nominee. We shall make the announcement very soon.
So what kind of negotiations are you having? So we are seeing a lot of reports indicating that you're having conversations with your new coalition partner, KANU. You're also having negotiations with Wiper. You're having conversations with ODM in the House and the other NASA Alliance members. What kind of conversations are you having?
There are several forms of conversation. We may form a grand coalition government, but this is the end we found out because there's also a school of thought that views that NASA should continue being a responsible opposition.
Yeah.
So those negotiations will be announced very soon. I think it is not for me to make those announcements yet.
So with all of this change that we saw, everybody was in a buzz for such a long time, Senator, or a short time, it seemed like a long time. What changes now are we going to see?
We are going to effect changes in the committee's leadership. We shall do reshuffling. We shall remove those senators who refuse to support us during the vote for the removal of the deputy speaker. They will definitely be defeated from their committee.
All right. But now what changes now in terms of governance are we going to see? Does this now create a platform for us to see, many more things happening in terms of how governance will take place? Or status quo is maintained with different people?
How one measures a leader in the National Assembly or even in Senate, it is in terms of how fast we are towards pushing government bills, how fast we are towards ensuring motion and statements are handled. Also, there are several parameters. So currently, or before we came into leadership, several bills had passed somewhere between the National Assembly or in the Senate, the entire legislative conveyor belt. Also, we had a leadership that was frequently criticizing His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, his policies, frustrating his policies, which are meant for the betterment of this country. So with the new leadership, you will see more bills be processed. You will see more synergy between Senate and National Assembly. The supremacy wars that were there will now go away. So expect the productivity from Senate and also from the National Assembly.
So what exactly are the priorities? Of course, there's a big sense that the big priority is the BBI. And, to a lot of Kenyans, BBI is really about a political settlement. It's not about the real needs on the ground. So what is the agenda beyond BBI? What can Wanjiku hope to benefit? And what is BBI also bringing to Wanjiku?
Yeah, thank you. Now, several positive will experience. Number one, we expect to have a better national cohesion. Remember, for a long time, Jubilee Party has always been accused as being a party representing 2 or 3 or 4 major ethnic groups. So the people of Kisumu or Mombasa felt excluded from the government. The government did not really have a national outlook or legitimacy. So one of the main positive outcomes will be a government representative, a government that everyone feels included. Number 2, as to the policy outcome, yes, you will see better healthcare, you'll see better roads, you'll see better energy policies.
How?
Because one, you'll see a government that is more cohesive when we bring bills, when we bring motions, they pass. When we will have a budget that represents every region. Remember, it goes without saying, previously, the focus was more into the areas that used to support Jubilee Party.
Yeah.
Now, with the government being more inclusive, every region now will get a representative in the discussion about how the national cake is going to be shared.
In
Senator,
essence-
so far all your answers have been on, really on the ball. But now I'm on this one. I beg to differ. Okay, on national cohesion, that's very debatable because the process, of course, is extremely adversarial, and already we are seeing a repeat of what happened in 2004, 2005, when the then NAC was splitting up, and you had this very virulent, almost hate speech that really polarized and poisoned the national kind of psyche. So we are seeing a return to that, and I don't think you can build cohesion on the kind of utterances and the kind of politics of betrayal that we've seen. But in terms of the agenda, the Jubilee Party has had the majority in the House. And for most of the part, URP was actually towing the line of this hegemony and majoritarian. So none of the president's projects have been stopped in the House. In fact, the problem is we haven't had a critical opposition in the House. So when we are saying we are in a debt crisis, this is a problem of the Jubilee and the lack of a critical voice in the House that could say no. We have said no to this. When VAT was being increased because IMF was squeezing the buttons, and again, VAT, there's another push to increase. We've seen a lack of independence in the House. So we are fearing that this actually will further undermine the independence and kill the representation of citizens. Because if you can't challenge your party when your party has a policy that is inimical, anti-people, then the only people who benefit is the political party, the rulers of the party, not the people. So for us, we are feeling that we have lost ground, Senator. What do you say to that?
I disagree with all due respect. Yes, you are raising a very pertinent issue, the importance of what we call separation of powers, the importance of independent oversight institutions functioning well, like Parliament. I agree. All those things need to be there for democracy to work. But on the other hand, I think we also need what we call cohesive political parties. Because through that, as a party leader, you have an idea, you have a vision, and that vision can only be carried out by political parties being cohesive. Let me give you an example. President Uhuru Kangata, in his wisdom, decided to bring what we call order in Nairobi County to transfer some functions from the local county government to the national government. Makes a lot of sense. We have seen the problems of Nairobi. They have persisted. Lack of water, uncollected garbage, informal settlements have expanded. So therefore, on his own motion, he made a good decision. Let us rectify this problem. But what happened? Jubilee leaders started to criticize those ideas.
Yep.
To undermine those ideas.
Yep.
Now, you may argue that is positive, it is part of democracy, but it is not. It is Nairobians going to suffer if we don't transfer functions to the national government. So therefore, whereas it is important we allow freedom of expression, we allow Parliament to continue having a stronger hand in oversight of public policy. But we must also good policies of the national government have been implemented. And for me, when I compare the two values, on one hand, the importance of freedom of expression, a strong corporate institution, vis-a-vis the whole idea of having a cohesive political culture, I will have to opt for the second option while of course ensuring we don't kill institutions.
But Senator, you are calling it freedom of expression. Somebody else would call it internal democracy of the party. It's important to promote that internal democracy of the party. If leadership of the House, and it belongs to the Jubilee Party, feels that it was not involved or even consulted in this decision, then what does that say about Jubilee's democracy?
What happens in any good political, in any democracy, political debates internally are conducted within parliamentary groups meeting. But you don't take your differences to the public. So therefore, whereas internal democracy is important, that should be done in a parliamentary group, not going to undermine the policies of the party.
Senator, can I then ask, as a senator, your constitutional mandate is to protect devolution, protect the counties. And the process of Nairobi, because obviously you tabled a bill, I think in 2015, on the same subject of re-centralizing Nairobi. But the process that was followed is what has been challenged. I don't think the challenge was in the transfer of functions, because that's constitutional, but it's the process. In fact, the issue of the sovereignty of the people, the public participation, all of that was completely undermined. And even the Solicitor General has prepared an opinion on that. And we can expect if Nairobi and giving an independent view, because I believe Senator Gedure had what he had proposed was that the House investigate the issue to get to the bottom of it, because the process really, as a resident of Nairobi, and I'm also a member of the County Budget Economic Forum, we are saying we sat and we looked at the annual plan for the county, we looked at we were in the budget process, and then all of a sudden functions are transferred, and we're asking then, where are we as citizens? When we want to make inputs on health, what happens? So these conversations did not take place. So Senator, do you not think that the Article 10 on public participation, in fact, Article 1, Article 174, on the role of the citizen was undermined by the process, because it's the process that was challenged? And isn't it your responsibility then, as a senator, to ensure compliance with the Constitution, even when the functions needed to be transferred because of very failed leadership in Nairobi County, which we all agree?
Well, I think the reasons that were being proffered as to why some thought the process was flawed were untenable, did not make sense. Yeah, I say that because the process was good, was perfect. Remember, you have said that there was no public participation. That is not true.
Before the fact. Not after the fact. Before.
There was a rubber stamping, and part of the problem is, of course, the public are invited to participate, to give their views. But when you give your views over a document that's already been signed and it has been given 14 days, and then that report, the findings are not shared back, that whole process was a rubber stamping process. It actually is a mockery of public participation, Senator. So please, we expect you to defend our voice, not to kind of subject us to processes that kill our democratic say.
I still maintain that process was very perfect. There was the public participation. If one felt so strongly against the whole idea of transfer of functions from Nairobi County to national government, they could have gone there, they objected. It is there if one has that opportunity. The reason why the party was a little bit taken aback by the decision by the Deputy Speaker, the former Deputy Speaker, on that subject was it offended standing orders provided for by the Senate. The kind of motion the Senate was discussing as at that time does not crystallize into a resolution. You just come to Senate, you ventilate, and that's it. So we saw something that was not really fair something was a little bit problematic on our part.
Senator, can I ask just on that issue? They've then surfaced some allegations of conflict of interest, especially with the president and the first family vis-a-vis the takeover of functions of Nairobi. If residents wanted to take up this issue and say, we suspect here there is a conflict of interest, this thing doesn't look right, where can they go? Because our voice has been so muzzled, we are then saying this constitution isn't working for us. Even if there's a conflict of interest, we can only stand by.
Are you saying there's no provision anywhere for the Senate, for citizens to air their views?
Where would we go?
Court?
The court refused to hear this case. Actually, they deferred the hearing.
Can petition the Senate to listen to
the
this?
Senate removed the majority. It was
the speaker, the deputy speaker.
Deputy speaker who
You have
raised
a
the issue. Do you see what
You have a whip now who says you can come and talk to us.
He's
Is that
telling
not
us
so?
now. So is that the stance, Senator, that you can come and tell us from where you are, that you let us know where you have an issue, where are the hiccups, and let's see now how we can at least engage and start that conversation. Is that what you're saying? That things now would have been different because of the differences that we see having been placed?
Anyone aggrieved by that process or the decision, he or she could have gone to the Nairobi County Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it was the entity that was seized of that matter.
Yep.
One can always do a petition. An MCA can as well bring what is called a motion to even either raise those issues, seek to alter, vacate even that agreement through the systems of Nairobi County Assembly. Again, of course, I agree, one can as well come to the Senate, but you use the correct procedure, not an adjournment motion. One could come, do a petition to the Senate, again raise those issues. No petition was filed before the Senate.
That's not true.
One can as well go to court. If a court decision at the High Court is not satisfactory to the petitioner, one can as well appeal, go to the Court of Appeal. If the Court of Appeal renders a verdict which one is not happy with, of course you can as well go to the Supreme Court. Kenya has a very robust grievance mechanism. In fact, one of the best in the entire world. Anyone who is unhappy with the Indian nation, he or she has several places he can go.
I think, Senator, you've spoken very well on behalf of the party. Maybe that's a question to ask in your individual capacity, because I'm still not quite convinced that there's the independence to question issues that are really of interest to the president.
Why don't you do this? Just take it up.
We've done the petition. By the way, those petitions, they're there.
In the Senate?
Yes. Assembly. We petitioned the county assembly, we petitioned the Senate, the controller of budget. We've gone to court, and part of our argument was the issue of public participation. Because we feel I think there is a flaw in the Constitution, and BBI didn't pick this up because I think, we can't, for instance, recall an MP, recall an MCA. We can't, institute impeachment against political leaders. So as citizens, all our public participation processes end either in Parliament or in the courts. And whereas ending in the courts is not that bad, it's a very long process. It means that citizens' voice ultimately goes back to the represented leaders. So the direct democracy that is anticipated in the Constitution has been muzzled by the laws that were enacted. So in a way, our voice is being muzzled. That's how we can, we are not able to hold our leaders to account, apart from maybe through the election process. And where the election process then is not credible, then we can only go and throw
Senator,
stones. We'll be forced to throw stones.
This sounds, Senator, like feedback from the electorate, and what they're saying is, if we'd like to raise our opinion, which goes contrary to what we've seen happen, we basically don't have a proper forum that can see to it that we get justice.
Well, I disagree. I reiterate. The forums that an average Kenyan has with regard to this issue, on any other issue, they are just too many forums in Kenya. One can go to the county assembly, one can go to the national assembly, one can go to the Senate, one can go to the court. They are just too many.
There are many.
Yeah.
One of our co-hosts is CT Muga. He is working from home in this season, and CT is now on the line. Good morning, CT.
Good morning.
CT, good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Salimia Senate Majority Whip.
Mheshimiwa, good morning.
Thank you, brother. I'm okay.
I wanted to ask you a question.
Ask.
Wanjiru alluded to it, but all these passages and all these avenues that we say are available, do we know of any that have actually borne fruit?
Yes, of course. Yeah, we start with the courts. There are several instances that courts have declared various pieces of legislation and law and constitution. There are just too many instances. So whenever Parliament does something that is wrong, maybe it passes a law that is oppressive to Mwananchi, people have gone to court. They have overturned those pieces of legislation.
How about petitions to the assembly, either the Senate or the National Assembly or the County Assembly?
Yes, again, also there are several instances where people have brought various issues. Even a good example, let's say the petition or the decision to impeach Waititu, it was a form of a grievance. It was a form of unhappiness in the way my brother Waititu was running Kiambu County. It was brought before the Senate. The Senate decided to throw him out, and it was upheld by the court offer. So bringing issues to Senate is a good way of expressing grievance.
Senator, coming back to the issue of now the way you're whipping members and bringing coalitions and saying toe the party line, vote with the party in the House. Just the same thing that Wanjiru had alluded to earlier. I want to get back there. It's bringing the danger of a completely compliant parliament where what is brought from the executive that's running the government must pass. So the role of parliament as watchdog, as providing the checks and balances, is basically just being watered down and being used as a rubber stamp.
No, this is not true. Jubilee Party entertains robust debate, discussions on various policy issues, but the problem is that you have to use the correct forum. You don't go that in public agora meeting. You criticize the party leader for no good reason. You need to tell your dissent through party organs.
So, for instance, if you take a look at the report, the budget estimates that was brought to the National Assembly, and then the Committee on Budget and Appropriations came with a report to the National Assembly, which was basically questioning a number of things that the National Treasury had presented and the way the government had run the budget. This committee is led and also, occupied by a majority of Jubilee members. Would you say that was going against the government or the party?
No, to me that's an example of robust debates that are allowed in the party. Statements that come to the National Assembly, they are always being amended to reflect the wishes of the majority or the Wananchi. So government policies will continue being debated. They will continue being altered. They will continue being revised. It is part of democracy. And we shall not punish anyone for doing so. What we may have a problem with is where now one systematically opposes government policies in meetings, in various forums. That is an issue we will definitely be unhappy with. So allow me to, I'm entering into a meeting.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Senator Irungu Kangata, for speaking to us. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All the best in that meeting. Maybe you're going to deliberate on your next Senate Deputy Speaker.